So recently I attended a course called Agile Project Management, and before I attended this course I had completely zero idea what this whole Agile way of working really is. And after this course I realized what Agile really is about, and actually it's not very different from what I was doing, or it's not very different from the way I observe teams are working. And that course was conducted by the NTUC Learning Hub, sponsored by the company that I worked for. And I had a lot of fun in that course because we played a lot of games, we watched some videos as well to understand what Agile Project Management is. So in this video, I want to share what I understand about it from a beginner's perspective, and I hope that it helps anyone out there who's looking to understand what Agile way of working really is and how we can achieve Agile. I think that's the more important question that a lot of people have. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Andrew To, and in this channel we'll talk about ways to make work more fun and productive. So this concept of Agile way of working has gotten so popular in today's world that it has almost become a buzzword. So Agile in its simple sense really is just basically taking a large project and break it up into smaller goals that is achieved consistently over time. A little bit about Agile is that back in 2000, there were a couple of software engineers who came together in a snow ski resort in Utah, and these were software engineers. So they came together to talk about their own softwares, and they were just talking about each other about why it's so difficult to deliver softwares on time. So they came together and then they decided on a set of values and principles that they believe will help them to deliver software faster. So after that meeting, they started to promote that values and principles, and there was a non-profit organization that was set up to promote that, and then after that it caught on in the software project management world, and eventually it caught on in the business world. Now, Agile way of working really is to deliver incremental parts of the project from time to time. So imagine that there's a soccer game and there's a ball in the middle of the field, and there's just one set of players on the field whose goal is to just get that ball into the goal post. Now, as there are many players in the field, one player would just kick the ball to another player, and the player will kick that ball to another player closer and closer and closer and closer towards the goal post. And eventually, the last player is able to score that final, to kick the ball into the goal post. Just like the team trying to kick the ball slowly towards the goalpost. This way of working comes to the handy, especially when a goalpost actually keeps shifting. So just imagine there is a goalpost, but instead of the goalpost being fixed, the goalpost is actually being shifting up and down. What is not agile is that the entire team just stands at the ball, and the ball is in the middle of the field, and they just take aim and they gather all their strength and all their might just to deliver that one kick so that they can kick that ball into the goalpost. It is not agile because it's not delivering in increments. Rather, it's delivering a project in just one shot, right? It's like there's only just one bullet that you can deliver it. One personal example that I can really relate to in this is delivering a robot. Robots are pretty popular nowadays in organizations, especially when they want to automate processes. And in a process of building a robot, there are actually stages to delivering the robot. The first stage is to define the requirements, right? What do you want a robot to do? What do you want the outcome to look like? What is the input? And then what are the rules that you want the robot to follow? The second part of that process is to take those requirements and build the actual bot, writing the actual code, right? And then the final step is to test it to make sure that the bot is able to deliver the actual result. And so sometimes, rather than just trying to get all the requirements perfect from the start, what tends to work better in the real world is to come up with a simple set of requirements that would define the bot as successful, otherwise known also as a minimum viable product or a minimum viable project. And once the bot has been delivered successfully, then we can revisit the requirements again and start to enhance it again and again, right? And when the requirements are simple, the development process will be faster as well, because it doesn't take so much time to code all of that requirements, and the delivery will be faster. And then from there on, end users can find out what they, and end users can test the bot and figure out whether it fits them or not, and then go back to the requirements process again and iterate faster. Then rather than just trying to get all the requirements right from the start, sometimes that would take a longer time in theory than to do it in small incremental steps. So why do we need to work in an agile way? I think that it's because the world has gotten more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It's a VUCA world, right? The world is changing fast, right? It's volatile, meaning today we can have this set of requirements. Tomorrow we receive news that a system has been upgraded or there's a new change or new release, and therefore we have to incorporate new requirements, or some of the previously defined requirements are no longer valid. Because sometimes right from the start, it can be really difficult to define what we really want in the end, especially when we have big ideas and the kind of end product that we want is really just a vague, fuzzy idea of a vague, fuzzy description of what we want it to be. But in that uncertainty, it doesn't mean that we should not start the project. In fact, an agile way of working actually embraces that uncertainty by allowing changes to come in over time. And an agile way of working first locks down the requirements from the start, and that introduces some certainty into the system, and then add on changes over time. C is for complex, right? So the real world is complex. There are multiple variables, multiple priorities. We want everything in the world, but obviously we can't have everything, right? So definitely we need to prioritize what we want by taking some of the top few things. And finally, A means it's ambiguous. It means that one thing can have more than just one meaning. It can have a double meaning, triple meaning, and you can imagine in a system where there are so many inputs with different meanings, I think that's tied to the entire concept of how uncertain and complicated the whole thing be. So there are actually many ways to implement an agile way of working. In the workshop that I attended, we learned 4 frameworks of agile ways of working, and I would like to just highlight 2 of the most popular ones that are used in the real world, and these 2 are the ones that I also actively practice myself. The first methodology is called the Scrum framework. It's probably the most popular agile way of working in the software development world, and from my understanding, it's popular because it really just works and it's very simple to understand. In the Scrum framework, there are 3 roles in a project. There's a product owner, and then there's a project manager, and then there's like the project team members. The product owner is usually the person who defines what they want to see in a product. He's usually the guy with the money as well, who pays for the entire project. So he calls the shots by saying that I want to see this, and this in the final product. The product manager takes those requirements and plans out the schedule of when I can deliver these products. And those list of items form something known as the product backlog, which is basically the list of items that the product owner wants to see in the final product. And finally, the project team members are the ones who do the actual work, like the developers, the analysts, and the people who actually look at all the details and do the coding on the systems and on the computer. Once these roles are being defined, the way they work is that there is always a daily Scrum meeting. A Scrum meeting is basically the project manager and the project team members meeting for 15 minutes a day to talk through what are they working on for the day, what difficulties are they facing at the moment, and what they are going to do next. In this 15-minute session, it is not a problem-solving session. It's more of just informing everyone what they are doing on for the rest of the day. And from this 15-minute session, members can decide setting up meetings afterwards to talk about problem solving. Then the project team manager takes the product backlist, which is basically the features that the product owner wants to see, and sets a list of tasks to be accomplished in a sprint. A sprint is basically a burst of activity that all the team members work on for a fixed period of time, usually between 2 to 4 weeks. And during the sprint, in theory, that set of tasks should not be changed or cannot be changed, so that the team can just really focus on delivering that set of tasks at the end of that sprint. And the sprint is basically made up of daily Scrum meetings of team members talking about what they are doing for the day and what are the challenges that they're facing. Then after the sprint is completed, there is a sprint review that is conducted by the project team manager with the project team members, right, to walk through what has been achieved, what can we do better the next sprint. And then the project team presents the delivered work to the product owner. And the product owner, of course, gives their feedback on what they like to see, what they like, what they don't like, and how that can be improved. And of course, the whole cycle then repeats again, where the product owner says, I want to see these things, and the project team manager takes the existing backlog and adds it in there, or takes things out, and then sets sprint plans for the next 2 to 4 weeks again. So why is Scrum so popular in the industry? I think that it's really popular because it's simple to understand and the roles are clearly defined and they fit very well into many of the existing roles, and they fit very well into many popular roles in any project. There's always a guy who pays for a project, right? It's usually the product owner, and he defines what they want. And then there's always a project manager, right, who faces off the project, who faces off the product owner, and basically reports everything that's going on in the project, right? Because the product owner just wants to have one guy to talk to. He doesn't want to talk to every single one and just find out what's the progress going on, right? Obviously, it helps when there is one manager who is managing all the teams, and then the rest of the team goes into the project team members. So I think it's very well organized and it completely makes sense. And having that iterative process helps also to make sure that work actually gets done, right? And work actually gets started instead of fussing over all the requirements and trying to dream of the most perfect product ever in the whole wide world. Rather, a Scrum way of working tries to just get started with delivering a small set of that desired product through sprints, through 2 to 4 weeks of intense burst of work, and then getting that feedback from the product owners. The second Agile framework that I use frequently is called the Kanban framework. The Kanban framework actually originated back in Japan in 1940s when Toyota, the car manufacturer, had this production system where the workers would look at the boards, really literally wooden boards at a factory, to figure out what they need to do for the rest of the day. In its simplest sense, there are 3 boards to consider. The first board are tasks that have not started yet. The second board are tasks that are in progress, and the third board are tasks that have been done. So obviously the goal is to take tasks from not started to in progress and then to pull them towards the done stage. And every time there are new tasks that need to be added, obviously they will be added on the first board, which is not started yet. And the goal every day is to look at the board really at one glance to figure out where are we today, what we need to work on, and what has been done already. So it's a very intuitive way to work because it's visual, right? And it helps to really understand where things are moving along. One of the note-taking apps that I found that really helps me to implement this very well is Notion. And Notion has this Kanban board which allows me to just create very simply just by going on to adding a new page. And I just need to go under here, add a view, and just click on board and click create. And I have a Kanban. So all I need to do is just add a group here, right? And I can name this group whatever I want. But first, I'll always start something with like in progress. And after that, I'll add another group, which is like done. And then for each of these items, I can add mini tasks into here, right? So here's a view of actually the video ideas that I have for my YouTube channel, which obviously there are a lot of things over here that I really want to make videos about, but I haven't really found the time to do that yet. But I think this has helped me to get really productive with trying to churn out video ideas. And every time when I thought of a new video idea, I would just put it into the no status column and I'll try my best to move things along. And as you can see, I have a lot of ideas that I haven't really acted upon yet. Some of them are just already at a title stage. But what I like about this Notion app is that it helps me it's really convenient for me to just click on each of these ideas, and I can really just elaborate on them by opening them on the page. And all this is actually on the cloud already, so I don't have any files to deal with. All I need to do is just to go to a web page. So I think it's super convenient to implement this Kanban. And the magic of Kanban is to be able to move things around, right? So if I can just click on the tile and just move it from left to right, I can do that very conveniently every time when I know that, okay, I need to get this writing, okay, I need to film this, okay, I need to, this is a priority. This helps me to move things along fairly quickly. So I think to answer the question of how do we get agile, right? How do we become agile? It's to first pick a method that we want to explore and then literally just start doing it, right? Like look up what is Scrum, look up what is Kanban, and just start implementing it. It doesn't need to be perfect right from the start. It doesn't need to be beautiful. It doesn't need to be, fantasized and romanticized until it becomes like the masterpiece. It really doesn't. Actually, it grows over time. The one disadvantage with working in this method is that if nobody updates it, right, the method actually really falls apart, and then people just start going in all random different directions, and the project just doesn't get delivered, right? Can you imagine the Kanban board? If nobody updates it, if nobody adds on anything to it, nothing happens. And also even in the Scrum framework, if people don't meet every day, nobody knows who is doing what, and the project manager also doesn't know what other tasks to deliver, and ultimately the product owner will not be able to get what they want. So I would say just pick one method that resonates with you and focus on that, because it takes a lot of effort to update these things over time, and we don't have all the resources in the world to update 10 different frameworks, right? More is not better here. In fact, less is more here. All we need to do is just to focus, pick on one, and start implementing it right now. So here are my personal thoughts about how I feel when I work in an agile sense. So after the workshop, I could finally understand that the way of the agile way of working actually is not very different from what we're currently doing. The teams that are working have daily meetings, and during those meetings we talk about who's doing what and what needs to be delivered, right? I think an agile way of working is ultimately just a set of theory that people believe and have tried, that it brings project benefits. It allows them to deliver the projects faster, they feel happier, and I think they feel happier because everybody likes to see progress, right? Everybody really likes to see things moving along, chugging along, and they feel more motivated along the way. But I think the most powerful thing about why Agile Way works is that it emphasizes really on just getting started, right? And getting started is the most powerful thing to do, because by getting started, we overcome inertia. We overcome the inertia of trying to get things perfect. We overcome the inertia of trying to fantasize over the most perfect thing in the world and putting in 1 million requirements only to realize that actually only a few of them matter in the end. I've personally benefited from the Agile way of working because in those daily stand-up or Scrum meetings, I get to speak up, so I get to talk about what I'm working on, and what are some of the blockers or challenges that I'm facing, and that's where I can get a recognition of what I'm doing, and I can also get help for the things that I'm struggling with. While it's important to understand what is Agile, I think it's also equally important to understand what is not Agile. What is not Agile is basically, as what I described in the earlier example, which is to basically deliver the entire project in fixed stages. And I understand that approach easily as like the waterfall approach, right? Because the water really basically just flows from the top of the waterfall down to the next stage, right? And the water obviously cannot go back up to the step above, right? Because of gravity. So it really just flows from the top all the way just to the bottom, and then boom, and then that's the end of the project. Now, although the Agile way of working is really popular nowadays, it doesn't mean that every single project in the world can be deployed in an Agile sense. There's still certainly a time and place where the waterfall approach is still preferred. For example, when we want to build a building, right? Can you imagine when you want to build a building, there needs to be an architect, there needs to be a construction company, and they need to plan out the exact layout of it, right? Where do you want to build a building, right? How is the foundation going to look like? How tall is the building going to be? What do you want the building to be made of? And once those requirements have been set, then they move on already to the building stage. And that is helpful because once the building has started, nobody wants to go back to define the requirements again and say that, oh, now I want my building to be changed to a different spot. That is extremely costly because practically it means that all the effort that has gone into building that spot has gone to waste, and now you just want to build at a different spot. Therefore, it pays in the long run to just get the requirements set, right? Getting the floor plan set, getting the foundation set in stone, really literally in stone, laying the foundations first before you start building up and up and up. And once the project has been built up, then the project is complete, right? There's no going back already to the drawing board. Once the drawing has been finalized, the project has to go on in stages. So building buildings probably is better to use a waterfall approach, but for other projects that are more abstract in nature in the workplace, such as delivering a software, which is obviously how this Agile methodology was born, or drawing a piece of art, or anything that is artistic in nature, I think that would benefit from the Agile way of working. So thanks for watching this video. I hope that you taken away some useful ideas about what Agile really is. I know that I did not go into super detail about what Scrum or what Kanban really is. I just wanted to keep it really high level because I wanted it to be useful for anyone out there who's really just wondering what Agile is and how you can really get started and jump onto the bandwagon of being more agile in the way we work today. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next video.